Hey there, take a breath. I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this, chances are something hit you deep. Maybe she walked away. Maybe she didn't even say goodbye. Maybe you saw her choose someone else, and now you're standing in the wreckage, questioning everything, your worth, your value, your place in this world. But let me tell you something that might just change your perspective. Her leaving is not the end of your story. It might just be the beginning of your power. This isn't about blaming her or drowning in bitterness. This is about you, rebuilding from truth, standing in strength, and walking forward without flinching. So let's talk man to man, not about chasing, not about fixing, but about something far more powerful, letting go. Because when she chooses another man, your best response is becoming the man she never had the strength to stand beside. Let's get into it. You cannot force someone to value you, especially someone who has already decided to look elsewhere. But here's what you can do, and what you must do. You can value yourself with such unwavering certainty that another person's choice to leave doesn't dismantle your sense of worth. When she chooses another man, what's truly being tested is not just your heart, but your principle, your self-respect. And let me be clear, that is non-negotiable. In moments of heartbreak, your mind becomes flooded with questions. Was I not enough? What did he have that I didn't? Could I have done more? These questions arise not because you lack value, but because your value has been shaken by sudden rejection. But value isn't something others assign to you. It's something you affirm for yourself day after day, especially when no one else does. Now let's get brutally honest. Many men make the mistake of turning inward when a woman chooses someone else, thinking they failed as a partner, as a man, as a provider. But love is not a transaction of effort equals loyalty. Some people will leave even when you give them your best. That's not a reflection of your deficiency. It's a revelation of their misalignment with your purpose. You cannot earn loyalty from someone who's not built for commitment, and you should never auction off your dignity for the sake of temporary validation. Self-respect is the foundation upon which everything else is built. Your career, your relationships, your decisions, your emotional well-being, they all rise and fall depending on how you see yourself. And in the face of betrayal or abandonment, self-respect becomes your anchor. It reminds you that just because someone left doesn't mean you were disposable. It means they weren't capable of recognizing what you offered, or perhaps they weren't ready to receive it. Men are often socialized to chase, to fix, to prove. And when a woman chooses another man, it's easy to fall into that reactive pattern, thinking that if you show her how much she hurt you or how much better you are than him, she might come back. But that's not strength. That's desperation wearing the mask of persistence. True strength lies in your ability to walk away, not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring more about yourself. Letting someone go with grace is one of the most difficult forms of masculinity. It requires emotional discipline, not denial. It demands that you feel every ounce of the pain, but still uphold your standards. You don't collapse. You don't beg. You don't break your own code to win someone back. You rise because you know that self-respect is not something you temporarily suspend to secure affection. It is something you fiercely protect, especially when tested. And let's not romanticize betrayal. When someone replaces you without remorse, what they're communicating, whether consciously or not, is that your loyalty was not worth their commitment. That's a hard truth, but it's also a liberating one. Because when someone shows you that your presence is optional, your exit should be immediate. You're not someone who stays where he's tolerated. You're someone who thrives where he's honored. Do you know what happens when you walk away with your dignity intact? You recalibrate your identity. You stop letting someone else's absence define your value. You stop measuring your worth by who stayed and who left. And in that space, something extraordinary happens. You reconnect with your standards. You start attracting people and opportunities that reflect the respect you hold for yourself. Self-respect is not arrogance. It's not bitterness. It's not indifference. It's quiet power. It's the ability to say, I loved sincerely, I gave honestly, and I walked away respectfully. There is nothing weak about that. In fact, that's where your true strength resides. not in forcing someone to love you, but in refusing to let someone's rejection unravel you. And when you internalize this truth, you begin to change the way you show up in the world. You stop chasing people who are emotionally unavailable. You stop begging to be chosen. You start embodying the very energy that naturally commands respect because you are no longer trying to get it. You are it. So if you're standing in the ruins of a relationship right now, wondering what you did wrong or how you could win her back, pause, stop, shift the focus. It's not about getting her to see your worth. It's about you seeing it loudly, unapologetically, consistently. Remember this, when she walked away, she did you a favor you couldn't do for yourself. She removed someone from your life who didn't fully value your presence. That is not a loss, that is clarity. And when clarity comes, respect must follow. You're not here to convince anyone to stay. You're here to become the kind of man who doesn't need to. Pain is inevitable. But how you respond to pain, that's where the transformation begins. Emotional discipline isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending you don't hurt. It's about mastering the space between what you feel and how you act. It's the skill of allowing emotion to inform you without letting it control you. In the aftermath of heartbreak, especially when she chooses another man, your emotions will be loud: grief, anger, confusion, humiliation. But emotional discipline is what quiets the noise and keeps you grounded in your identity. You see, most men were never taught how to sit with emotion. They were taught to fix it, bury it, or distract themselves from it. So when rejection happens, they either implode or lash out. They text her out of desperation. They stalk her new partner on social media. They replay memories and seek closure in all the wrong places. But none of those behaviors are rooted in strength. Their emotional reactivity masquerading as action. True strength lies in restraint. Not the kind that denies pain, but the kind that refuses to be dictated by it. Let me be clear, feeling your emotions is not weakness. What's weak is letting your emotions compromise your values. The man who calls her at midnight begging for another chance, the man who insults the new guy to feel superior, the man who spirals into bitterness, those are not acts of power. They're acts of surrender to emotion. And here's the uncomfortable truth, your feelings are real, but they are not always right. The emotional chaos of heartbreak is valid, but it's also distorted. It tricks you into thinking that if you just try harder, if you explain yourself better, you might reverse her decision. But discipline reminds you, it is not your job to chase clarity from someone who made their decision clear through their actions. Discipline doesn't mean numbness, it means structure. It's building internal boundaries. It's saying, yes, I'm hurt. Yes, I still love her, but I will not degrade myself to ease this discomfort. That decision right there is emotional maturity. It is refusing to make long-term decisions based on short-term emotions. Because here's the truth, the pain will pass, but the consequences of your reactions will linger. A man who reacts in chaos often ends up regretting how he handled the storm. In this era of quick fixes and instant validation, emotional discipline is a rare and elite quality. It sets apart men who are merely driven by emotion from men who are directed by purpose. And purpose always requires clarity. You cannot gain clarity when you're emotionally erratic. That's why stillness matters. Taking time to pause, to breathe, to assess your thoughts before acting, that's not weakness, that's leadership. And every man must learn to lead himself before he can lead anything or anyone else. Heartbreak is a test, not of your masculinity, but of your stability. It tests your ability to remain composed when the foundation shakes. And the men who pass that test are not the ones who shout the loudest or move on the fastest. They are the ones who grieve with awareness, who journal instead of react, who turn their pain into introspection, not retaliation. These men emerge stronger, not because they avoided pain, but because they respected it. They treated it as a signal, not a command. Emotional discipline also involves reframing. Instead of asking, "Why did she do this to me?" ask, "What is this experience trying to teach me about myself?" That shift takes you from victimhood to accountability. Because here's the truth, emotions are messengers. They're not villains. Sadness tells you what mattered. Anger tells you where your boundaries were crossed. Longing tells you what needs weren't met. But it's not the emotion itself that defines you. It's the wisdom you extract from it, and discipline is the vehicle through which you extract that wisdom. Too often, men assume healing happens passively, that if you wait long enough, the pain will fade. But healing is not time-bound, it's action-bound. And the first action is discipline. Controlling your thoughts, redirecting your focus, choosing your behaviors with intention. That's how healing begins. Not with closure from her, but with alignment within yourself. So if you find yourself tempted to break your silence, to beg, to compete, or to diminish yourself in the name of love, pause. Ask yourself, is this action coming from my strength or from my wound? Because actions taken from a wounded place may offer momentary relief, but they almost always result in longer-term damage. You cannot always control what you feel, but you can absolutely control what you fuel. Don't fuel obsession, don't fuel self-pity, don't fuel resentment. Instead, fuel presence, fuel responsibility, fuel the version of yourself that chooses growth over reaction. That version of you is already inside, you just have to let him lead. And in the silence that follows the heartbreak, in the stillness when the world no longer revolves around her, you will discover something powerful. You are not defined by what she chose. You are defined by what you choose next. And if you choose discipline over dysfunction, self-mastery over emotional chaos, and integrity over impulse, you don't just survive heartbreak, you transcend it. Because in the end, the greatest power is not in being loved by someone else. It's in being able to hold your own ground when love walks away. Rejection stings. There's no denying that. It shakes your confidence, clouds your clarity, and for a moment, maybe longer, it makes you question your worth. But what if I told you that rejection, especially the kind that feels personal, is not an end point? What if it's a carefully disguised redirection, pushing you not away from something good, but towards something better, toward alignment, maturity, and self-realization? When she chooses another man, it's easy to interpret that choice as a verdict against you. You weren't enough. He's better. You lost. But those are surface-level interpretations, emotional reactions dressed up as facts. The deeper truth is that rejection reveals incompatibility, not inadequacy. It signals that your paths are diverging not because you failed, but because something greater is unfolding that requires your detachment from what no longer serves you. There's a powerful psychological truth here. The brain craves certainty, even if it's painful. That's why we obsess after rejection. We'd rather believe we were the problem than sit in the unknown. But maturity, especially emotional maturity, is about tolerating that uncertainty long enough to gain perspective. And once you gain perspective, you begin to see that not being chosen can be one of life's clearest signs that you were meant to evolve beyond that connection. Rejection isn't the removal of opportunity, it's the refinement of direction. It's life cutting away what's not in alignment with your highest potential. You may not see it immediately, you might even resist it, but often the doors that close are doing you the deepest kindness by preventing you from investing further in what was never meant to carry you forward. Let's go deeper. Imagine you had gotten what you wanted. She stayed. She chose you. But she wasn't fully present. Her loyalty was divided. Her energy was half-hearted. Would that truly have been a victory? Holding on to someone who doesn't truly choose you isn't a win. It's a slow erosion of your self-worth. Rejection, as painful as it is, protects you from that erosion. It forces a decision you may have been too emotionally entangled to make for yourself. Here's where redirection becomes powerful. It forces introspection. It compels you to ask hard questions about your identity, your desires, and your standards. It makes you redefine what it means to be loved, not as being accepted at any cost, but as being chosen without compromise. That redefinition sets the foundation for future relationships that are built on mutual respect, shared values, and authentic connection. And this principle applies not just to relationships, but to life. Every rejection is a message, not that you're unworthy, but that this path wasn't yours. Sometimes that path is a person. Sometimes it's a job, a community, or an opportunity, but the wisdom is the same. What rejects you is often rerouting you to where your presence, energy, and purpose are not only welcomed, but required. Let me offer you something you may not have considered. What if the rejection you're experiencing is not happening to you, but for you? What if this painful disruption is the very thing necessary to wake you up to your potential, to snap you out of emotional dependence and back into alignment with your values? Men who grow are men who reflect, and the man who can sit with rejection long enough to extract its lesson becomes a man who no longer fears it, because he begins to understand that rejection is just a form of divine guidance. It's a guardrail. It says, not here, not with her, not like this, and that clarity, while painful, is invaluable. This is where your response matters. You can either allow rejection to reduce you, or you can let it refine you. You can either spiral into blame and bitterness, or you can choose accountability and growth. The difference between the man who stays stuck in the story of being left and the man who rises from it is one simple decision: to see the rejection not as a statement of value, but as an invitation to evolve. You don't need to chase what left. You don't need to compete with who replaced you. You need to become the version of yourself that is no longer shaken by someone else's decision. Because when you truly internalize the belief that rejection is redirection, you stop asking why me, and you start asking what's next. This mindset transforms your pain into purpose. You begin to see setbacks as setups. You no longer fear losing people who don't align with your vision, because you understand that their departure creates space for something better, something authentic, something built on truth, not compromise. And as you grow in this understanding, rejection becomes less of a threat and more of a signal. It's life saying, there's more for you to become, more for you to experience, more for you to give, but only once you stop holding on to what's already walked away. So yes, she chose another man, and yes, that hurt. But what she chose is not the final word on your value. It's just the turning point in your story, a story that doesn't end in loss, but in redirection, a story where you don't chase what left, you rise toward what's next. And that next chapter, it begins when you stop asking why she left and start building the life that makes you grateful she did. Masculinity, in its most authentic form, is a reservoir of calm confidence, grounded presence, and unwavering self-possession. It is not loud, frantic, or frantic. It is steady, deliberate, and measured. When a woman chooses another man, many men fall into the trap of desperation, chasing, pleading, or trying to prove their worth through actions driven by fear rather than purpose. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of masculine energy. True masculinity is not desperate, it is sovereign. Desperation is reactive. Masculinity is proactive. Desperation seeks to fill a void from the outside, grasping for validation, reassurance, and acceptance. Masculinity, on the other hand, is self-sustained. It flows from a deep internal well of self-respect and vision. A man rooted in genuine masculine energy does not bend or break because someone else chooses a different path. Instead, he remains anchored in his own worth and direction, refusing to be defined by external approval. This distinction is critical. When a man behaves out of desperation, he signals to others and to himself that his identity is contingent upon being chosen or loved. This conditional self-worth is fragile and unstable, vulnerable to every change of circumstance or shifting emotion from others. Masculine energy rooted in sovereignty, however, is unconditional and resilient. It says, I am enough as I am, regardless of who stays or leaves. Understanding this requires a redefinition of what it means to be masculine in today's world. Popular culture often equates masculinity with dominance, control, or possession. But real masculinity transcends these superficial traits. It is not about controlling others, it is about mastering oneself. It is not about possessing affection, it is about embodying value. This internal mastery is what distinguishes a man who chases from a man who leads. When she chooses another man, the impulse to chase is powerful and understandable. After all, losing someone you care about threatens your sense of belonging and significance. Yet, the man who embodies true masculine energy recognizes that chasing is a surrender of power. It places his emotional state and self-esteem in the hands of someone else's decision. And when you give away your power in that way, you lose not only yourself, but also the respect of others. The path of masculine energy is different. It involves accepting the reality of her choice without begging for reconsideration. It means acknowledging your feelings of loss without allowing them to dictate your behavior. It means stepping into your life with integrity, maintaining your standards, and walking away, if necessary, without resentment, without desperation. This does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending to be unaffected. On the contrary, it requires a deep emotional courage to face pain squarely and still choose dignity. It requires understanding that vulnerability is not weakness, but a form of strength when balanced with discipline and self-respect. The masculine man grieves privately, reflects thoughtfully, and heals internally, all while preserving his external composure and direction. Furthermore, masculine energy is magnetic precisely because it is not needy. Neediness repels while autonomy attracts. When a man is desperate, his energy broadcasts insecurity. When he is sovereign, his energy communicates confidence. This subtle difference affects how others perceive and respond to him. A man who is secure in himself does not need to prove his worth. His presence alone commands respect and admiration. Another critical aspect of masculine energy is vision. A man with a clear purpose is less likely to be derailed by rejection or loss. His sense of identity is not wrapped up in any single relationship, but is built on broader goals, values, and commitments. This vision provides direction and motivation beyond the immediate emotional turbulence. It fuels resilience and propels him forward, no matter the setbacks. It is essential to recognize that masculine energy is not fixed or innate. It is cultivated. It requires intentional practice, self-awareness, and continuous growth. Men who learn to embody this energy develop habits of self-discipline, emotional regulation, and purposeful action. They create boundaries that protect their well-being and nurture relationships based on mutual respect rather than fear or desperation. When you embody masculine energy in this way, you transform the experience of loss into an opportunity for growth. Instead of being consumed by what you've lost, you redirect your focus to what you can build within yourself, your life, and your future. This shift from desperation to sovereignty is profound. It moves you from reactive chaos to intentional creation. In practical terms, this might look like stepping back from the urge to contact her, resisting the temptation to compare yourself to the man she chose, and redirecting your energy toward personal development. It means investing time in your passions, health, friendships, and goals, activities that reinforce your value independent of external validation. Moreover, embodying masculine energy means embracing the idea that your worth is not conditional on being in a relationship. Your value precedes and transcends your relationship status. This mindset liberates you from the cycle of desperation and frees you to engage with others from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. When she chooses another man, your response reveals your true masculine energy. Do you chase and plead, risking your dignity and peace? Or do you stand firm in your sovereignty, honoring your worth and walking your own path? The choice defines not only how you handle loss, but also who you become in the process. Masculine energy is calm in the storm, steady in uncertainty, and sovereign in the face of rejection. It is not desperate, it is powerful. In the aftermath of a relationship ending, especially when she chooses another man, many men fall into a dangerous pattern, losing themselves in an attempt to hold on to what was. This impulse is natural but profoundly misguided. The desire to be loved, accepted, and valued can push a man to shrink his identity, compromise his values, and abandon his purpose. But the truth is clear and unwavering. You must never lose yourself to find her. What does it mean to lose yourself? It means sacrificing your principles to appease another's expectations. It means silencing your voice to avoid conflict. It means changing your behavior, your beliefs, and even your desires to fit into a mold that doesn't belong to you. When a man loses himself, he becomes a shadow, an echo of what he once was, hoping that by becoming someone else, he might win back love. Yet, love that requires you to diminish your true self is no love at all. It is conditional affection, built on fragile foundations that crumble under the weight of authenticity. If you must lose yourself to keep someone, then what you are keeping is not a partnership. It is a cage. And cages, no matter how gilded, suffocate the soul. Masculine identity is not a possession to be traded or hidden. It is a core of being, forged through experience, values, and vision. When you sacrifice that core for someone else's approval, you rob yourself of the very qualities that make you unique and worthy. Worse, you set a precedent where your self-worth is dependent on external validation, leaving you vulnerable to repeated cycles of loss and insecurity. This pattern is tragically common. Men convince themselves that if they just change enough, try harder, or become what she wants, she will come back. They wear masks, suppress desires, and ignore red flags, all in the name of love. But the irony is brutal. In losing themselves, they often push the person further away, because authenticity is the foundation of real connection. When you are not yourself, the relationship is built on illusion, which inevitably collapses. True strength lies in the courage to be unapologetically yourself. It means holding firm to your values, even when doing so risks rejection. It means honoring your ambitions and boundaries without compromise. It means choosing integrity over approval. This is not arrogance. It is respect for the self, and respect is magnetic. Furthermore, losing yourself to find her does not create closeness. It breeds resentment. Over time, the man who has sacrificed pieces of himself begins to feel disconnected and hollow. What started as an effort to keep love turns into a source of bitterness and frustration. The relationship loses its joy, replaced by a quiet erosion of identity and mutual respect. Masculine energy flourishes in authenticity. It thrives in the tension between vulnerability and strength, openness and boundaries. A man who knows who he is does not fear being alone because he is comfortable in his own presence. He understands that the right person will not ask him to change his essence but will celebrate it. This does not mean that growth and adaptation are unnecessary in relationships. Healthy partnerships require flexibility, empathy, and mutual respect. But growth is never about losing your core. It is about expanding it. It is about becoming a better version of yourself, not a lesser one. The difference is subtle but critical. When she chooses another man, the temptation to become someone you are not intensifies. You may ask yourself, was I not enough? Or what does he have that I don't? These questions, while natural, risk driving you towards self-betrayal if they lead to radical changes aimed solely at winning her back. Instead, redirect those questions inward. Am I living authentically? Am I honoring my true self? The answers will guide you toward healing and growth. Moreover, maintaining your identity creates a powerful ripple effect. It signals to others, and importantly to yourself, that you value yourself enough to refuse compromise on what matters most. This confidence is attractive not because it is boastful, but because it is genuine. It communicates that you are a man who stands firm, knows his worth, and does not settle for less. The process of reclaiming yourself after loss is not instantaneous. It requires reflection, patience, and often the willingness to face uncomfortable truths. You may need to reconnect with passions you set aside, re-establish boundaries you relaxed, or redefine your vision for the future. This journey back to self is, paradoxically, the most courageous act of love you can offer to yourself. Manipulate someone to stay is not strength. It is fear disguised as love. The man who lets go honors both his own freedom and the freedom of the other. In practical terms, letting go requires self-compassion. It means treating yourself with kindness during moments of vulnerability. It means seeking support when needed, whether from friends, mentors, or professional guidance. It means cultivating habits that reinforce your sense of self through mindfulness, physical activity, creative expression, or purposeful work. The highest form of power in letting go also lies in envisioning a future beyond loss. It is the capacity to imagine a life where your worth is recognized and celebrated, where your contributions matter, and where your happiness is not contingent on someone else's presence. This vision fuels resilience and sustains you through the difficult days. Remember, letting go is not the end of your story. It is a new beginning. It is the moment when you reclaim authorship of your life, free from the weight of what was. It is the space where healing begins, where growth accelerates, and where true freedom emerges. So when she chooses another man and your instinct is to hold on, pause. Reflect on the power that lies in release. Embrace the discomfort as the cost